Sara, a joy to have you with us. What I'm so excited about is, I've said this before, oftentimes, especially when it comes to Comicpalooza, there's a lot of material out there I don't follow. I am so thrilled. Resident Alien is one of the shows I really enjoy.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I love talking to people that do know the show, that love the show. I also love talking to people who don't know the show so I can introduce them to it. But I'm super excited to meet the fans at Comicpalooza and to go to Houston. Never been. I'm very
Oh,
excited. This will be my first adventure to Houston, Texas, and just very appreciative of anybody who's taking the time to watch the show when there's so much content out there.
it's a fun show. It defies explanation because it is funny, but it's serious. It's mysterious. And so I'm curious, as a performer, being in that world, there are things your character doesn't know, but there are things Sara knows as the actor, knowing the property you're working on, knowing from ahead. How do you play so you don't overplay things that are hints to the audience that maybe they need to pay attention to, but you don't want to overplay it? Where's that balance? How do you work that?
That's a great question. One of my favorite things to do is when I get the script, we usually get together and do like a table read. And then I get rid of everything in the script that has nothing to do with me because I like to watch the show like everyone else as a fan. For example, in season 3 for our big finale, I completely forgot like who finds out what and how they have these cliffhangers for their characters. And I was just as floored as everybody else. I have too much going on with my character. I just need to focus on that. So I think in terms of your question, the easiest way for me to take away the Sara and just bring in the Asta is to be totally, honestly, authentically in the world that I'm in when I'm shooting, and to really not know the information until it's given to me.
Yeah.
And it's, sure, I know a lot of things about my own character, but again, I like to just kind of get rid of everybody else's story so I don't know. That helps.
Uh-huh.
But I also just think there's something really powerful and playful, like clown work. There's a purity there of really in the moment finding something out, and there's a pinch in the ouch of that hitting you and having to explore that reaction. And it's one of my favorite parts of acting.
Because it's comical, but also serious in moments, how do you find how to present the character? What's too broad and what's too drawn back in a show like this, which I think would be a very challenging balance act to find?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I mean, it is a very tender balance between comedy and drama. I think in season 1 it was a lot darker and they started to really lean more towards the comedy in season 2 and 3. But I think my role as Asta is to come in and be just truthful and the straight man. Really, I don't have to do as much comedy as my cohorts, so I get to just come and listen and react and just be honest to my own self and to my own story. And it leaves room for there to be just truth in both comedy and drama. It's funny because it's true. It's sad because it's true. And I think that's why it's so relatable to so many people, because there's something for everyone. And it's not just slapstick comedy. There also is really heartfelt, meaningful moments in the show that Asta really is at the forefront of, and I'm so grateful for that because that's really my bread and butter.
Yeah.
I'm not the comedian.
How did you come to be in this? And what did you know of Resident Alien when you first were either auditioning or told of this part?
I was given the cover of the Resident Alien graphic novel, the comic book written by Peter Hogan. And I saw the picture of Asta and Harry on the cover. And I remember thinking, she looks like me, like really, like the nose and the eyes. I don't know. There was something about the way she was drawn that I felt very, drawn to. And I just thought, well, this is really cool to be going out for something that's already out there, but is going to be interpreted in a new, fresh way on TV. And when I read the script, it was one of the scenes from the pilot episode, and she was full of anger and resentment. And at the At that time in my life, so was I. I had a lot going on in my personal life, so I really understood her, and I really didn't have to put too much on it. And it was a wonderful audition, which turned into a booking. But as you know, with pilots, you never know if the show's going to get picked up. So I was just grateful to go from waitressing to being a series regular for 2 seconds to going back to waitressing for a whole year before we actually got picked up for season one. By the time I got to play Asta in full, I had lived such a full year of excitement and fear and doubt that I was able to just jump right into where she was at in her world and really just, I don't know, sign right up and get right to it.
Somewhere I saw you said advice to people who want to get in this business or are in the business and trying to make a go of it. You said, get a day job you really enjoy. So while you're
Yes.
following this, and you mentioned waitressing, and you really enjoyed being a waitress.
Yeah, I think the career is the jobs that you that support you while you're auditioning. That's the career. And then if those jobs become acting jobs, well, yay, that worked out. But the career is mind, body, spirit, staying aligned with yourself and with your true reality and having a bunch of really great auditions. And you just, honestly, it's a win when you go into the casting room and have a good audition. If you book the job, it's a bonus. There's so much that goes into the acting world that there really isn't acting left over until you finally just get to say action and go. The rest of the time, there's so many business aspects, so much doubt and fear about what you're doing and, if you're doing enough. And so I think it's so important that also you have something to monetarily support you on the side because
Mhm.
acting isn't always going to be a monetary successful adventure. It's definitely going to leave you like the hustler that you are. All actors are hustlers. We got to do what we got to do to make money. So if you can find something that makes you happy, that fulfills you, that is flexible with your schedule so you can continue auditioning, that is where your career is going to thrive. Because if you're not worrying about booking a job for money, then you can book a job for soul. And that's really where I think the best bookings come from.
Yeah. Talking about hustling, is it true, not hustling necessarily, but kind of forcing your family to be in plays that you were creating as a child?
It's funny. I never forced them to be involved, but I did make them watch me. I forced them to be the audience. My brothers and I have a great relationships, but when we were younger, I really wanted to play sports and they were older and they wanted to just play with the boys. So I would play with them by playing around them. I was the coach and the fans and the popcorn man. I remember going to my brother's football game and there was one of those coolers that had the cool like square 3D print at the top, and I would pretend I was a secretary of a CEO. I mean, I was constantly in imaginary circumstance. But my brothers were also, as they got older, they were into theater. We all were singers. So I was just reviewing a home video recently where we did a play for my parents' 25th anniversary. We like wrote a skit and pretended to be my parents in a car trip. So there was a lot of creativity in my family, but it was never forced. It was always just, that's the way it is with the Tomkos.
Yeah. When you go to these cons and you get these opportunities to see fans, what surprises you about either what they ask or how they relate to what your work has been?
My favorite part about meeting fans is them being completely honest with why they're watching the show and how it affects them, mostly in a meaningful way. I've had a lot of people tell me, it was the one show I was watching when my mom had cancer, and it was the one thing that kept her laughing. Or a fan that will say, I was really down and out, and it was the only thing I felt like putting on my TV. that interaction is so meaningful to me, especially since I was in the worst place in my life when I did this audition, and it ended up being the best thing that had ever happened to me. So I can really relate to people watching television and feeling like they're your friends and feeling like they're not alone. Honestly, it's been one of the biggest goals in my career, is to reach you through your living room and make you feel seen and heard. And so when I get that feedback from audiences that say, I do feel seen and heard, especially by your character, it means the world to me. So fan interaction is what it's all about.
Yeah. Do you do a lot of these cons? Does it take up a good deal of time?
I'm just starting out. Alan is the big ticket seller, as you know. He's so popular and so talented, especially in the sci-fi world. So he's got a lot of fans. But as the show is growing, we about 2 years ago started getting conventions that were reaching out saying, we'd like to have more of you at these conventions. And frankly, I didn't really know anything about them. I knew of them, but I thought it was something you did when you've had more success or down the line. I mean, I've gotten a chance to meet some of the people from Lord of the Rings and Star Trek. And so I was just sort of like, I'm around these people that I'm a little bit geeky about. This is so fun. But now it's fun to see that there are people that are geeky about me. And it's just this wonderful, like, circular, like, joy fest that these cons have been. So this is probably maybe my 4th or 5th convention. And I'm still a little baby, learning the steps and like learning the ins and outs. My favorite thing is when fans tell me about like, the different things that they wear, or the stickers they give, or the gifts they give out to each other. And it's just so fun to learn each con's like through line of gifts and toys and fun.
Well, Comicpalooza is a great one, and I'm happy you're going to get to experience it. And I'm thrilled for all of us. We're going to get to experience you here in town.
Thank you.
I've done some little voiceover work for anime, and I've always joked, I just want one character that connects, that in the rest of my life I can go to cons and sit there and sign autographs and meet the fans.
Honestly, it still could happen, because voiceover is such a wonderful world where you can still be found that way. And I've seen a lot of voiceover artists at these conventions that have long lines of people who are really like, love their voice, love their work. So, hey, it could happen.
Well, I look forward to seeing the long lines in front of your booth and the panel that you'll do at Comicpalooza. Sara Tomko, thank you so much. And Resident Alien, let's hope for a 5th season. That's what, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.